This Voice Registry podcast is brought to you by VoiceBank.net. Hi, everyone. I'm Tracy Pattin, and I am here at Salami Studios with voice director Rene Veilleux.
That's right, Rene Veilleux.
Tell us what is voice directing for animation?
Well, actually, I focus mostly on dubbing for Japanese anime, which of course is animation, but it's existing animation, which means the picture is already obviously finished, and our job is to lend a voice to the existing cartoon, to the existing animation. So what we're actually doing is we're taking an existing property that's in Japanese, and we're replacing the voices with English actors. As opposed to original animation, which with original animation, you actually do the voices before the cartoon.
Okay.
So that would be where the difference would lie. And most of my experience or work to date lies in the dubbing after the non-original animation.
Okay. And speaking of anime, Japanese anime, I mean, I see so much of that out there in terms of news about it. It seems like that is a growing part of the animation industry.
Absolutely.
Tell us about that.
It's definitely growing exponentially, I think, every day.
Why do you think that is?
It's been very popular, obviously, in Japan for a long time. And I think it just kind of found its niche here, and the niche grew, and I think the culture, embraced it, and I think just people started to really enjoy it a lot more, especially with the dubbing when they didn't have to watch the subtitles anymore. It probably opened up the audience more because you went from subtitle to dubbing. So there's a lot more dubbing. But there's been dubbing for many, many decades now. I mean, it's definitely been done.
Speaking of when you're being a director, you obviously have to cast. And so what do you look for in voiceover talent for anime?
Well, definitely for dubbing, it's a skill that's acquired or learned, I think, or it's not just talking, obviously, like original animation where you get to do kooky characters and just rattle off words a mile a minute or slow or whatever. It's you have to work with existing animation, which means you have to fit the voice flap. You have to...
And what is that? What is voice flap?
The flap is when you watch the cartoon and the lips are moving.
Okay.
And then you have to make sure that the words fit the lips.
Okay, and so the voice actor has to know ahead of time how to do that.
Well, what they do is usually on the scripts for an adaptation, if a show is being adapted or dubbed, the script is adapted from original Japanese into English, and within the script there are cues for the talent to know when there's a break in the the mouth movement.
So this definitely sounds like it's a very broad, it's a specific skill that requires a certain type of voice actor.
Absolutely. It's almost like reading music a little bit. When you read the words, you have the beats, you take the pauses. A lot of times what people do, and then you have a cue. You're given a cue. You hear 3 beeps.
Okay, yeah.
And then that's your cue to start speaking. And then if you take the beats or the pauses according to the script, if it marked as the script is marked, then you should be able to hit the flap.
So when you're casting, what is the requirement then from the get-go?
Well, obviously it's always good to know, and a lot of people that I've worked with is a small group of, it's a circle of, a network of actors that have been doing this for a while.
Okay.
So based on their resumes or IMDb's or that they've been doing this for a while, so you know that they obviously can manage the flaps, the dubbing part of it. Then on top of that, of course, besides that, once you can get that skill under your belt, then it's all a matter of it's a little bit more difficult than original animation because you still have to act while trying to hit the beats.
Right, yeah.
So it's especially more difficult, I think, than original animation because once you get the technical side out of the way, then you have to actually bring the performances and the range and the emotions all within the right number of mouth flaps, and you have to stop. And so usually what happens is an actor will will preview a loop, will preview the line. So they go ahead and they stop and they watch it in Japanese. Then they look at the script and then they're able to go ahead and do their take of the line.
Okay, so you work with the same group of actors. Do you bring in new actors, and how do you find them?
I absolutely positively do bring in new actors. I actually am probably known as somebody who likes to give people a chance, but it's definitely something that takes a little bit of time to learn. What I've found other people have told me how they've entered the niche of dubbing
Uh-huh.
is they found friends that do it, or they find actors, or they approach people that are doing it, and they sit in on sessions.
Okay, so they sort of shadow them.
They shadow them, they watch, they learn. Again, it's not brain surgery, but it's certainly an acquired skill that takes time to learn. I've seen people learn. I've seen people pick up quicker than others, but it's just so multifaceted where you have the technical side and then you have the acting side.
Okay, so in addition to taking classes, I imagine there are some classes out there within animation. What can actors do at home, so to speak, to get themselves started?
I'm not really sure at home. I guess, just to be familiar with the anime titles, to watch them, to know, because it is a definite genre.
Okay.
And there's definite acting and emotional beats within that genre. So I would say maybe studying a lot of the anime. Really the best thing to do would be to find a studio or an actor who does it. I mean, that's the best thing that I can recommend.
Okay.
That's how I've heard a lot of actors do it. I mean, find people from your voice class that might have done it.
Okay.
Find people from maybe your agent knows people that, does dubbing.
Uh-huh.
So I would say the best thing to do is research friends, classmates, companions, coworkers, or other people that do it, so you can learn by watching.
And I have to say, speaking of watching and watching voice actors, sitting in today on the session, watching you in action, it was amazing to watch. And the skills, it's so impressive because there's so many different skills going on at once. In addition to the technical skills, it's the acting component as well.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
And these actors have to be pretty flexible, right? And pretty
flexible, pretty quick, and it's fast. I mean, of course, when you have a project, you have a schedule, and you want to do a certain amount of loops or episodes or lines per session. So, you can't spend 2 hours on, one scene. You usually have to do 1 to 2 episodes.
And how long, by the way, is an average session?
An average session is anywhere between 2 to 3 hours.
Per actor?
Per actor.
Okay.
An episode takes 10 to 12 hours, but of course you don't do them all at the same time. You have to do every part individually because you have to get the cues, you have to preview. You can't do like an original animation where you set up 6 mics, 12 mics, or whatever. Everybody performs and then they edit it after. No, you have to work within the picture that exists. You have to work with the cues. You have to work with the script and make sure all these components come together just for that one line.
Wow.
So every line is addressed individually as opposed to an entire script.
Okay.
So we usually range anywhere between 20, 25, or 30 lines per hour.
Uh-huh.
So you're talking about a line every 2 minutes.
Wow.
So you preview.
Sounds like you have to be good at math, yes. Rene.
You preview, you try it, you get an alternate. The editor will adjust it slightly.
Okay, it's fascinating.
It's a very tedious process.
Well, in closing, Rene, tell me what you think about the whole animation industry. Is it growing? Are there more opportunities for voice actors?
It's always like any other industry. It's always in flux, back and forth. I think that, as we've said previously, the anime is definitely growing. There's many, many titles out there. I've also discovered through the network or grapevine that there are some companies that are closing down. So like any other place, it's growing, but then it's being consolidated into a couple of different companies that are running it. But animation, I think, is definitely going to be here to stay.
Yeah, good news.
It's not going anywhere.
Okay.
Original programming, there's always going to be original programming, but again, that is a whole other beast of itself.
Uh-huh.
That would be, voice classes, getting a demo, trying to find an agent.
Oh, that was another question in closing.
Mm-hmm.
The demo. Do you listen to demos for animation? Is it
for anime?
So do actors have specific anime demos?
No, they wouldn't have the anime
What do
demos.
you look for? What do you want to listen to?
I would listen to an animation demo because also it's very important to be able to have an actor that has range, because if they're not the lead, they have to play maybe multiple supporting roles within multiple episodes. So it's always nice when an actor has a range, because you can make them the old professor and you can make them, the student in another scene or in another episode. So it's always great to listen to animation demos. I think animation demos are very important, so a director can see what your range is. But you can't really have an anime demo per se.
That's what I was going to ask, yeah.
Because people that might have that might have like clips of stuff that they've done.
So there has to be a video component, it sounds like, for specific anime.
There would have to be a video component to show the anime work. A lot of the talent that I work with maybe have a website and they'll put up clips of the shows that they've been on, so you can see their work to the picture, which, you know, with the flap and watching the lip flap and all that stuff. But absolutely, I think animation is going to be here to stay for a while. It's not going anywhere. It's always in flux like any other industry, but animation is not going away if I have anything to do with it.
Great final last words. Thank you, Rene, and I look forward to interviewing you again.
Thank you. Enjoy.
This Voice Registry podcast was brought to you by VoiceBank.net. Join us next time.